Welcome back into the program. As we mentioned at the start, the 20th Women in Leadership Summit's been taking place in Sydney this week. It's brought in several hundred industry leaders. Despite, though, studies showing diverse leadership teams lead to better company results, women still only occupying around 20% of executive positions in Australia. Well, for more on what that event is likely going to do to move the needle, as we say, we're joined by Anthony Taylor, Director of Sales and Marketing at Liquid Learning, and a warm welcome into the program. Put this event into context. 20 years of talking, or 20 years of actually doing something to move the needle, as I've said. What has changed? We still cite a pretty ugly statistic after 20 years.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Yeah, this is true. We haven't been running this specific event for 20 years. It's actually the 20th incarnation, running across all industries. But we also run, a lot of other events in this space. We've actually run around 100 or so women in leadership courses. So it's definitely still an issue that's there. The good news is that organisations are taking the front foot on this now. They're taking the charge and understanding that investment has to be made, that steps need to be taken, and it's going beyond just quotas to say this many people need to be in positions. It's taking real action in investing in your staff and getting them the development that they need to get there.
And then what's intriguing is in our previous segment there was this almost inexorable acceptance on the fact that in 20 years the very role that you may be in or aspire towards may not even exist. So it's that notion of how do you inspire, how do you ignite the passion to stay the course, if on the other hand you're telling people, actually, this whole industry's potentially not even going to be around in 20 years.
Yeah, well, I think that the thing that we're finding the most at our events, in a broader sense, is that organisations are adapting. So I think that even if the current role's not there, what we're seeing is that new roles are emerging and new opportunities are emerging. So it's about preparing your staff and your emerging and future leaders to have a variety of skills that they can adapt to, and they can find those roles that are going to suit them and ultimately benefit the organisation and the industry as well.
What would you say this year stood out as really best illustrating? What was showcased here that wasn't present, say, last year? Even in the space of 12 months, what can we look to?
Definitely what we're seeing is a transition where organisations are throwing out the old concept of what a leader is, where we have a mould that we try and emulate and try and train our staff to become this perfect or ideal leader. What we're now seeing is that organisations are focusing on the individual's inherent strengths and saying, well, what are the skills that you have? What are your strengths? And let's develop a leadership style around that. So the age of the authentic leader is really what's coming out now. And in your last segment, Jenny's speaking about something very similar at the conference this week, was about how you can be an authentic leader. And that's when people get their best results, because they're being true to themselves, they're not faking, they're happier and more motivated and more confident.
That is true, although one would assume that that's all because of the learning, the life learning, the examples that you've cleaved to as an individual, that you're attracted to. I mean, like attracts like, as they say, on that measure. So to say it's all down to moi versus the inspiration derived from X, Y, Z, I mean, it's kind of, it's a little bit cute, is it not, to separate that out and to pretend away the influence? Absolutely.
It's a combination of everything that forms people's leadership style, that gets them to the positions that they're in, and that's why people getting together, and particularly women getting together and sharing their journeys, is so important, because they can learn from the experiences of other people. It's also extremely important to get men more involved in the conversation. The organisations that are seeing their senior leadership, men and women, get involved in these conversations are the ones that are seeing the biggest change and impact. But absolutely, it's about a range of things: internal training, external training, giving people the opportunity to think about what their leadership style might be and what roles might be appropriate for them in the future, what they can offer to the organisation as a whole, rather than just do your job and that's it.
A brief final thought, when you get numbers falling below what critical mass do you say actually we've achieved something, because there's now no need to separate out the genders? We don't have to carve this out and treat it as a separate entity. We are all equal. How far away from that point are we? Critical mass, and you can't hold the conference.
Yeah, well, look, the interesting thing with these events is that it's not about segregating men and women, and we run a lot of events that aren't just women specific. They're focused on roles or industries or anything else. Even if we achieve levels of parity or the targets or quotas that organisations are wanting to achieve, there'll still be a place for these type of learnings and opportunities to network and share with like-minded individuals, because it's not about the obstacles and barriers that we face, it's about the opportunities that can be presented, and sometimes getting out of the office and thinking about these sorts of things, networking with other people and joining a community of people that share the same issues is just what you need to be able to realise that there are other options, and that can still exist even 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years into the future. There'll always be a place for it.
Anthony Taylor, Director of Sales and Marketing, Liquid Learning, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.